Hi, my name is Alex Serrano. I live in the old Worthington area, and I wanted to do a little video showing how we are restoring some of our older wood windows in our house. Originally, our plan had been to replace these windows. However, after looking at what's available and how much it costs, it seemed like restoring them was kind of a better option. So we did a lot of research, and we needed to understand how these windows were constructed in order to figure out how to bring these windows up to a level that would work like a modern window. So I thought the best way to kind of show this was to show you an older window that hasn't been updated and kind of discuss the parts in the window and what we did and how we replaced things. And then we'll go downstairs and we'll look at a new window that's an old window that's been completely restored back to new, I guess is the way to say that. So this is a unrestored older window in the house. It's definitely pre-World War II. Saying it's 100 years old is probably pretty accurate. The way these windows are constructed is these are double hung windows. So that means that this upper sash and the lower sash can move up and down independently. Now, in order to keep the window up when you raise it, they use a counterweight system. So if you go inside the wall of one of these windows, and I just removed this panel, this is normally covered, you'll see that there's actually a series of pulleys and counterweights that support the weight of the window when you raise it. The problem with a lot of these is that they made them out of cord, which is basically a fabric. And you end up with this breaking, and then the window won't stay up normally, and that's where you see people using a stick or whatever they can find to hold the window up. Another major problem with these older windows is they're very drafty. When you create a giant compartment to the side of the window with no insulation all the way to the exterior wall, air is going to find its way in on a cold winter day. So a lot of times you'll actually be able to feel up these pulleys the air just blowing in. So that's definitely a problem on these older windows. The other thing that's an issue is they basically didn't use weather stripping on a lot of old windows. They would just cut them to fit and try to make them tight enough to keep the air out, but not so tight that it made it impossible to raise and lower. So you'll find oftentimes the air just blows around the window anywhere it can find a little gap. So we needed to address all those kind of concerns. So one of the decisions we had to make, and I feel like it was a good decision, was to change this from a double hung window to a single hung window. That means only the lower sash would go up and down. And what we found, which you'll find on most houses, is typically this upper sash is actually painted shut because people just don't use the upper sash on these windows. So only the lower sash is working anyways. So by permanently sealing the upper sash and by permanently adding caulking into it to seal it, that eliminates almost half the draft right away. The other thing that let us do is if you look inside this compartment on the side, you'll see that there's actually two sets of weights in here, a lower and an upper weight. The upper weight is supporting the weight of the lower pane. So by being able to remove these two outer weights, you then can start spray foaming the inside of this compartment and leave only one pair of weights for the lower sash. So the way we did that is we use this stuff. This is, it doesn't have to be this particular product, but this is your typical spray foam. It connects via one of these professional spray guns. Now they do sell this kind of with a little straw tube. This is much, much, much better to work with. You can really control the flow and get a much better seal. But basically, we foamed all this inner compartment, leaving enough space for the outer weights, which allows us to almost instantly seal off all the drafts inside that area. Now, one thing to note, when you do buy this stuff, you want to get the one that says windows and doors, because it actually will prevent the casing from expanding too much and pushing the windows and keeping them from being able to operate normally. So get the windows and doors stuff. The second problem that we have, I'll demonstrate it here. So when you open up this window, you'll find that there is no weather stripping at all on the inside of most of these old windows. The reason they did that is they just didn't think about modern weather stripping the way we do. They did have some stuff at the time that's correct for that period, and it's called spring bronze. And this is actually bronze, and what it does is when you place it in position, it will act as a way to better seal that window. When the window slides down, it squishes that bronze shut and creates a really nice air gap seal. And you can put this all the way around all the sides, and that will help out a great deal once you get your window correctly set in there, so that you can have a really nice seal around the window. The third problem you'll see on these old windows is the fit. You'll see that this window doesn't fit flush anymore. It's expanded over the years. So by trimming it down a little bit and by replacing the hardware, which is some cheap steel hardware they had in the 19th century, with some more modern bronze hardware that's a lot better at sealing it, you can get a very tight seal on this window, and that will do a big part at trying to make the window nice and weather tight. So next part, we'll go downstairs, we'll kind of look at a window that's completely done, and you can see how it all worked. Last thing to point out, obviously the paint is pretty worn out, so updating the paint makes it look new, and that always makes it look a lot better. Hi. All right, so this is what it looks like once we finish refinishing the window. As you can tell, this window looks a lot better. It's got a nice coat of paint on it. It's got new hardware. We put some nice brass hardware on it, and the hardware definitely adds to the look, kind of makes the window look a lot nicer and a lot more finished. In addition, we've replaced that old sash cord with this chain, and it does the same thing. Basically, there's a counterweight inside the wall, but this brass chain will last a lot longer, and it won't break like the other one has upstairs already. You can also see the spring bronze. That's the weather stripping we added. Those are copper nails that hold the spring bronze weather stripping in place. When you bring the window up and down, what it does is here at the bottom you can see the window's out, and the spring bronze kind of pops out, and as the window comes down, it presses it into position, and that gives you a nice clean tight bond between the sash and the window frame that prevents any air from sneaking around and bringing those drafts with it. The same thing happens at the bottom. When you push down, the spring bronze kind of locks it in position. So as you push the window down and you latch it up here, you really have a nice seal that keeps all the drafts out and keeps all the warm air in. What you can't see is inside the walls here, we've actually added a lot of foam insulation, and that helps create a nice R value right around the edges of the window. And that obviously prevents any cold air from leaking in around the edges. So that's what it looks like once we complete a window. I hope that helps other people if they're interested in refinishing their windows. You can definitely do a pretty good job as a DIY homeowner, and I hope this helps. Thanks.